If you own multiple bikes, you'll need to own multiple dropper posts. For 3 dropper posts fully equipped, that brings our final total to $1,655. That's $876 more than owning just a single wireless dropper post. This is my one dropper to rule them all theory. Tim, we're sitting here in the shop. We've got 2 of my bikes. Neither of them have dropper posts on. I do need to put droppers in these, and I figured, why not race you to see who can put one in faster?
Heck yeah, bring it on.
All right, you're the professional. I'm gonna have you put that guy in my Dreadnought.
Sold.
And I'm gonna install this brand new RockShox dropper post in my Druid. So, let's do this, Tim.
All right, bring it on. Here we go.
All right, man. Well, I gotta go ride. Have fun setting that thing up.
Okay, have fun, bye. Oh, he's gone.
All right, you might have guessed from my quick install, today I'm talking about an all new wireless dropper post, the fully redesigned RockShox AXS Reverb. This post has me excited for some very specific reasons. Now I know that batteries on mountain bike components are a fairly polarizing topic. And the good news is there are plenty of other great mechanical dropper options out there if you hate batteries. I'm not going to tell you that you need to run out and buy this new dropper immediately because it will revolutionize your riding, because it won't. But I do think for some riders, a wireless dropper post makes a ton of sense. I'm going to tell you why I'm excited about the new AXS Reverb and why it could potentially save some riders some serious coin. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this too. So let's get into it. All right, there are 3 reasons why the new Reverb has me so excited. 1 is the ease of installation, 2 is the longer dropper post lengths, and 3 is what I'm calling the one dropper to rule them all theory, which we'll get into a little later. The first reason I'm excited about the all new Reverb is actually something that applies to all wireless dropper posts, and that is ease of installation. There's no cable and housing needed. You just drop the post in your bike, put the controller on your bars, pair it, and voila, you've got a working dropper post. While most modern mountain bikes do have internal cable guides to make installing cable and housing easier, it isn't always perfect. Then you add in batteries and motors on e-bikes, and installing that stuff can be an absolute nightmare. All you have to do is ask our mechanics how they feel about installing dropper posts on some e-bikes.
It's my least favorite thing to do.
Definitely takes a lot more time and effort.
Sucks. It's the worst.
Wireless droppers make things a lot easier, and I like that. The ease of install will also come into play when I tell you my one dropper to rule them all theory. My second reason for being excited about the AXS Reverb is dropper post lengths. The original AXS Reverb that came out in 2019 maxed out at 170 millimeters. Unfortunately for me, I am all legs and a 170 millimeter dropper just isn't going to work for my saddle height. Fast forward to this fully redesigned Reverb, and we have sizes ranging from 100 millimeters to fit the shortest riders, all the way up to what I'm pretty sure is the longest dropper on the market, 250 millimeters. The sizes go up in 25 mil increments, and for me, the perfect size was this 225 dropper. While I wish I could get away with that 250, the reality is that big guy is likely only going to work for XL and XXL frames. Look at the overall length on that thing. It is absolutely ridiculous. Good news is RockShox has pretty much everyone covered with their dropper sizes. You'll have 30.9, 31.6, and of course 34.9 diameters as well, so they have a dropper for everyone. You'll have to do a little bit of measuring of your seat post insertion on your bike to get the best size for your needs, but for me, the large frame and a 225 is the perfect formula for dropper post height. Now, how did RockShox all of a sudden add these longer dropper lengths? Well, it's a full ground-up redesign on the new Reverb. The original worked on a hydraulic system that was actuated via the motor and battery at the top of the post. The new design is a full air-over-air layout with the electronic actuator down here, next to where your collar on your bike would be. When the dropper is fully extended, you are sitting on top of a specially designed air spring chamber with no negative air spring. So, at full extension, the dropper is solid, exactly what you'd expect from a fully functioning dropper. When you hit your controller to actuate the post, it opens up some internal valves, and you put your weight on the saddle, push it down, and It does exactly what you want a dropper to do. However, RockShox is also introducing what they are calling active ride on the new Reverb. When the post is not at full top out, the air-over-air system introduces a small negative air chamber in there. This actually gives the dropper a little bit of up and down suspension in the middle of its travel, which is apparently great for techie e-bike climbs. Definitely an interesting concept, and I'm interested to hear what others think about this. I've only tried it a couple of times out on the trail, but don't really see myself utilizing active ride on many of my rides. Let me know what you think. Now that I've hit on my first 2 points of excitement and a little bit on tech, let's get into my big reason for being fired up on the Reverb. This is my one dropper to rule them all theory. I am lucky to own 3 mountain bikes. And I first thought, all right, I'm the exception and not the rule. Most people only have 1 bike, and the cost of a wireless dropper post just doesn't make a ton of sense for most riders. But after looking at the yearly Pink Bike Reader Survey, it appears that a large majority of riders actually do own multiple bikes. There are more people saying that they own multiple bikes than there are people with only 1. A lucky bunch of people, no doubt. If you own multiple bikes, you'll need to own multiple dropper posts, unless you go the wireless route. You can have 1 dropper post for all of your bikes. This brings us back to that point of the ease of installation that I made. It takes mere seconds to swap a dropper and a remote from one bike to the other, which is what I personally do. It's no sweat off of my back to make the swap depending on the bike that I want to ride that day. So let's break it down and do some bike math to illustrate why I think it's cheaper to actually own 1 wireless dropper post over multiple mechanical ones. We'll do this math assuming you own 3 bikes like myself. So you've got your 3 bikes. It's a sunk cost that we aren't bringing into our equation here. Congratulations, you have prioritized having mountain bikes in your garage over investing in your retirement. It's a truly special club to be in. I'd like to welcome you. I've got my new AXS Reverb coming in at $549. When you buy the Reverb, it comes with the dropper post, a battery, and a charger, but you'll have to buy a remote separately. The new Reverb matches up to the pod controllers that are also used for SRAM's wireless drivetrains. It's $150 for one of those, and that includes the pod and a bar clamp. So $699 for the Reverb and a controller. Now, I'm not going to buy a new controller for all of my bikes. I'd have to pair that new controller with the dropper every time I make the swap, and I'm just not going to do that. But what you can do is swap the pod from bike to bike. In order to do that, you're going to need the AXS pod clamps for my other 2 bikes, and those are $40 each. Now we're sitting at $779 in total costs. And that's it. That's what it takes to run an AXS Reverb on all of my bikes. Depending on the bike that I'm riding that day, just a couple of seconds to swap the dropper and controller over and I'm out the door riding. Now, let's compare that to the cost of a cable-actuated dropper on all 3 of my bikes. We'll use the super popular and premium Bike Yoke Revive for this comparison. We'll do this with their longest dropper post, a 213mm dropper. We're already losing without even looking at costs because this Reverb is 225mm long. So with 3 bikes, I'll need 3 droppers. That's $400 each. Total cost, $1,200. We've already blown past the AXS Reverb costs, but it doesn't end there. You still need some more stuff. You're going to need 3 different remotes for these 3 bikes. We'll go with the super popular and great Wolf Tooth remote. $55 each for those. Your total costs so far are $1,365. Now, with a cable-actuated dropper, you're going to need cable and housing. You're looking at about $10 per bike. $1,395 is our running total. Now, last piece you're going to want is a saddle on each bike. You're probably not taking your saddle off your bike and putting it on the one that you're riding that day. You'll want one for each bike. I've got my trusty Cro-Mag saddle here that my butt prefers. I've had this thing on 5 or 6 different bikes over the last 6 years, and my rear end just gets along with it. It travels with me from build to build. You're probably gonna want the same saddle. So if I were to buy 2 more of these, that's $130 each. That brings our final total to $1,655 for 3 dropper posts fully equipped on all of my bikes. That's $876 more than owning just a single wireless dropper post. Now, maybe you don't have 3 bikes, you have 2 bikes. All right, let's get rid of one of those. but that's still gonna come out to $281 more than a single axis reverb. Maybe you're saying there are cheaper dropper options out there. That's true, so let's take a look at the most popular and cost-effective one, the OneUp dropper. If we swap everything to the OneUp dropper, a OneUp remote, and all the required adapters, on 3 bikes, you're looking at a cost of $501 more than owning a single axis reverb. With those extra savings, you can even buy a spare axis battery to keep in your pack if you're afraid of running out of battery on the trail. I've never personally had any issues running out of battery on my drivetrain or my dropper, but if you're scared of that, a spare battery is a pretty easy thing to keep on you. So, with my bike math, if you own multiple bikes, a wireless dropper post just makes more sense. It's the one dropper post to rule them all. Maybe this is a kooky theory, but in my head, it totally makes sense. You let me know. Am I out to lunch with this theory? So, there you go. RockShox AXS Reverb. Ease of installation, longer dropper post lengths, and my one dropper post to rule them all theory has me fired up on the brand new Reverb. I realize this isn't a product for everyone and it's a pretty pricey one, but for the right person, I do think this thing makes perfect sense. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments, and we'll see you out on the trail.